Hey loves, it's Britt, and I wanted to do a different kind of video today. I just wanted to talk about orbs in Synastry. So this is something I get asked a lot on my videos on comments is, you know, what orb can I use, or does this orb count? So if you're new to astrology, an orb means the distance between the planets in aspect. So, for example, the conjunction aspect means that we have the same sign present, right? But because there is 29 degrees or 30 degrees of each sign, we could have two planets in the same sign, but by orb, they're not conjunct. So, for example, if my sun was in Leo, July 22nd or 23rd, I am probably a 0-degree sun in Leo. If I was born at the end of Leo season, I would be a 29-degree sun in Leo. Now, if we're talking orbs, that would be extremely large and not counted as a conjunction because they're just too far apart, versus if I was a 0-degree sun in Leo and someone else was a 2-degree sun in Leo, we could say that our suns were conjunct at a 2-degree orb. So I know that in Vedic astrology they don't use orbs like this. They just count it like if you have sun at 0 Leo and sun at 29 Leo, that's still a conjunction. Now, whatever works for you with orbs is the way that you should practice astrology. For me personally, I would keep the orb within about 10 degrees at the max, maybe extending it a little bit for sun and moon in a conjunction aspect, but not much more at all than that, because what you'll find is that the closer the orb, the more you're going to feel that aspect. And like, you might notice that, you could have for example, so my moon Mars are conjunct in Leo at a 1-degree orb, and they're around 22, 23 degrees of Leo. When someone's Venus is at 0 degrees of Leo, that doesn't count as a conjunction to my moon and Mars. And I have had it where I've had significant relationships where Venus was conjunct to my moon at a 2 or 3 degree orb, and that was very felt by me. But when Venus is at 0 degrees and my moon and Mars are at 22 and 23, I don't feel it in the same way. It still feels good to be interacting with someone who has planets in the same sign as you, but the potency of a conjunction is just not there, as far as my opinion, when we're talking these larger orbs. But there is something that I really believe for astrology and for synastry is you have to find what works for you. I probably use wider orbs than most astrologers do, and that's just something I've found in my practice and in my personal life that has worked for me. And for me, it's also very intuitive. Like, I don't have a hard and fast rule, like, okay, it has to be in this orb, although I did say 10 degrees. That is very wide, but I tend to be generous with my orbs sometimes. And there's different orbs for different things. If we're talking a composite or a Davison chart, which is read kind of like a natal chart for the relationship, you can absolutely use wider orbs, because sometimes what you'll find when you're doing a composite or Davison chart is that there isn't a lot of aspects. So you basically have to use what you've got and extend the orbs a little bit. And you can do that too if you're doing a synastry that does not have a lot of aspects, which is more rare, but it does happen sometimes. But then also, when you're not having a lot of close aspects that are close in orb, this relationship probably is not going to be very significant for both of the people. So that's just something as well, because the aspects that are in the closest orb, the ones that are at the 0 degree orb, if you have them, are going to be the most prevalent, they're going to be the most felt, they're going to be the strongest. And this is the same for natal chart aspects as well. So yeah, what was I saying? So what I would use for a conjunction is, around 10 degrees. The sun or moon, maybe up to 11 or 12 if it's connected to a double whammy aspect, but still that's very wide, and I would definitely, in my sessions, or if I'm doing a chart for someone in my personal life, focus more on the closer aspects for sure than that. And then for trines, I would use probably up to 8 degrees max. Sextiles, 6 max, probably 5 would be better. That is pretty wide. But like I said, I can be generous. The inconjunct, 3 only. That, when you're talking, even though I don't consider the inconjunct or the quincunx a minor aspect, still mathematically it is, so you have to keep it within a 3 degree orb. If it's maybe a little bit more than 3, it could still count, but no more than that. Oppositions, you could use up to 8, even up to 9 or 10. If we're talking in the case of a double whammy aspect, you can extend it a bit. So that's another rule that I have. If there is a double whammy aspect, meaning the aspect is going both ways, I can extend the orb a little bit, because this to me is like a major relationship theme. So what did I miss? Squares, you could do up to 7 or 8 in orb, but knowing that the wider they are, the less felt they're going to be, which is probably good, because squares are tough, right? Versus a 0 degree square is going to be a constant felt battle, right? So this is for synastry. Natal charts, composite charts, you could extend it a little bit, not the inconjunct though. And yeah, it's definitely a personal preference, and like even what I'm saying right now, like that could change based on my intuitive read of the charts that are involved. It could definitely change, and you guys might be surprised. I don't use many other aspects. I sometimes look at the quintile or the biquintile or the semi-sextile or semi-square. I do look at them. Sometimes I don't use them, or parallels or contraparallels. I don't use them. And not to say that I won't ever, and not to say that there's not, insane value in using them. I just particularly feel like there is enough with the other aspects, the major aspects and the inconjunct or the quincunx, that I don't spend too much time looking at the other aspects. But that, I could be wrong in that, and I'm open to always learning more. But I do find with astrology, there's just so much there, right, that we would be spending hours and hours and hours on each chart if we looked at every single aspect every single time, right? But trust your intuition. If you're guided to use those aspects in your practice, if you're guided to use a certain orb, if you're guided to do it like the Vedic astrology people do it, where you just count a conjunction, anything in the same sign, by all means go ahead and do that. That's just not what I personally do, and this video is just kind of a personal general guideline of what I do. Oh yeah, and the other thing that I do that's probably controversial is I don't use many asteroids. I do look at some. I look at the major asteroids, Juno and that, Chiron for sure. And I would probably use a wider orb than most astrologers would on aspects to those asteroids. I kind of just use them the same as a planet, which definitely is not how most astrologers would do it. They would really minimize the orbs on certain asteroids, but I don't use many asteroids, so I just kind of consider them like planets when I do use them. And not that I don't look at them, I just don't always include them in my sessions, because like I said earlier with other minor aspects, there's just so much more there when we're just looking at the main planets. And I do think sometimes we can be reaching, we're just wanting someone to be our soulmate so bad that we throw in all these asteroids, and then there's major conjunctions, and then it's oh my god, this is my soulmate. And it's maybe that's true, maybe there is some value in doing that, but I think sometimes we're reaching, and if there aren't major significant aspects between the main planets, then there isn't much significance to the relationship. But I could be wrong on that. So, this is just my personal opinions. What else? Oh yeah, the North Node. The North Node and the South Node are always opposite, right? I probably use a wider orb than most on those. I would count up to 10 degrees orbs of a conjunction on either side. And then for all the other planets, trines, sextiles, and conjuncts, same as what I said. But yeah, I would definitely count up to 10 degree orbs of conjunction on either side, maybe even up to 12 if it's a personal planet, or specifically sun or moon, especially. So that's probably unpopular. But I feel like, the North and South Node are such pivotal karmic points that conjunctions on either side, even if they're quite a wide orb, tend to still be pretty felt in the synastry. So anyways, that is just a quick video on what I feel about orbs and how I do it and how I use them. And yeah, it's more intuitively based than anything, but I do like to keep it simple, and that's sort of my rule. So I'd love to know what you think of that. How do you differ in your practice? Do you do it differently? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching, you guys. Bye.